All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from, and I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today, I'm just going to go into a quick lesson on, this post that I came across on Instagram from the page Dearborn Scope, and it says, did you know Michigan has its own folklore legend, like Bigfoot, called the Dog Man, and dates back to 1887. And pretty much, Dog Man would be, a cryptid, which I'm going to go into the meaning of that word, but I want to, read the caption from this post, bring out a little information, bring out a couple of scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And this is going to be another, the title, yet again, Beast Newly Created. So it says, no, we're not talking about the alleged Bigfoot sighting out of Monroe County that's made headlines in recent days. We're talking about another disturbing creature, the Dog Man. And yes, recently, a man and his son, they were out hunting and, they seen Bigfoot. And yet again, I've made mention of this in previous videos that I myself have seen, that particular creature, specifically in New Jersey, and, you don't have to believe it. I do. I've seen it with my own eyes. It wasn't, no made up shit. The best way I can describe it, it was a tall, dark figure, walking through the woods. Just to give a quick backstory, me and my cousin, we were driving back from, we're coming from Myrtle Beach, headed back to, Hartford, Connecticut. We had stayed in Virginia, so lucky we had stayed in Virginia, stayed the night in Virginia to drop, our other cousin off. She was going to school out there, but me and my other male cousin, we left. It was just me and him in the car. And we were on, I want to say, that bridge overpass where the river is in New Jersey. I forget exactly where. But, I'm looking off, to my right. I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and there's nothing but woods. We had just passed by the water. And as I'm looking, at the trees I see in the distance, a tall, dark figure walking through the woods, and it wasn't a man, it wasn't a bear either, So this is a real thing, again, just like I'm going to bring up the scriptures, man, like these particular creatures that, people don't believe exist, or just like it says, folklore, that you will be surprised that they're actually real, but that was just, my own personal experience seeing that particular creature. So continuing on, it says, the Michigan Dog Man is one of the state's most chilling and enduring legends, a tale that blends folklore, eyewitness accounts, and spine-tingling mystery. Says, what is the Michigan Dog Man? Says the Michigan Dog Man is said to be a 7-foot-tall bipedal creature with the body of a man and the head of a dog or wolf, glowing eyes, and a chilling howl that sounds like a human scream. Sightings often describe it as covered in dark fur, incredibly fast, and sometimes aggressive. Origins of the legend. First recorded sighting, 1887 in Wexford County. 2 lumberjacks claimed they saw a creature with a man's body and a dog's head watching them from the edge of the woods. Reported sightings, they've been sporadic but steady, occurring across northern Michigan, especially in the Lower Peninsula. The 1987 revival, the legend song, The Dog Man legend exploded into pop culture when radio DJ Steve Cook at WTCM FM in Traverse City aired a spooky, tongue-in-cheek song called The Legend as an April Fool's prank. He was shocked when listeners began calling in, claiming to have seen the creature. The song inadvertently awakened decades of stories and sightings. Says common, it's lucky if you heard that audio from that clip, but says common traits of sightings seen near forests, abandoned cabins, and logging roads, often described as having glowing blue or amber eyes, sometimes accompanied by a foul odor or guttural growl. Now keep that in mind, a foul odor. It says frequently appears during the 7th year of each decade, a superstition based on the 1987 song. And it says notable location for sightings: Wexford County, Manistee National Forest, Allegan County, the Upper Peninsula, near the AU, Sable River, and the Muskegon area. So these are the particular places where people have frequently seen, this creature, just like Bigfoot sightings, they'll see it in particular places because in reality, there's more than one. They're scattered all over the U.S., particularly in wooded areas. One of the biggest, or one of the most notable places I'll say is out in California. People see them all the time out there, but they're even here in Michigan, but just like it says, the first recorded sighting goes back to 1887, and a DJ 100 years later, 100 years later plays a song that, was a joke, but in reality, pretty much sparked, people started, calling in, claiming that they have seen it, right? So went to ChatGPT and it says, what are cryptids? Says cryptids are animals or creatures whose existence is suggested by folklore, eyewitness accounts, and anecdotal evidence, but not confirmed by science. And of course, Esau with his damn science says the term comes from cryptozoology, a field that investigates such beings. Cryptozoology is not recognized as a legitimate science, but it remains popular in pop culture and among enthusiasts. It says common example of cryptids: Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, a large ape-like creature said to inhabit North American forests, and that one is true. Says the Loch Ness Monster, also known as Nessie, says a supposed sea creature living in Scotland's Loch Ness. Chupacabra, a blood-sucking creature reported mainly in Latin America. Says Mothman, a winged humanoid seen in West Virginia during the 1960s. Yeti, also known as the Abominable Snowman, a Bigfoot-like creature from the Himalayas. Says key traits of cryptids: lack of scientific evidence, because of course, Esau has to have, evidence to, prove that these particular creatures are real. Apparently eyewitnesses, aren't enough, and particular evidence, isn't enough for him, because in reality, they know that these creatures exist. They know that they're real, the elites anyway. Says often tied to local legends or myths, frequently appear in sightings, blurry photos or videos, and that's usually what happens when people try to, record, videos or take pictures of it. It's usually blurry, man. It doesn't come out straight. It's just, I don't know. It's odd, but still to this day, like the famous Bigfoot video from, I want to say like the late 1960s, the Patterson-Gimlin film of the creature, and I forgot where exactly in California, that was the only, the clearest video to this day that they have of that particular creature, but any other time, people, you can't get just a straight photo of, these particular beings. And it says can be ancient from myths or modern urban legends. Some cryptids have turned out to be real animals once thought to be mythical, like the Okapi or the coelacanth, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, Salakia, says which fuels ongoing interest in the possibility of discovering creatures. And of course, I put in, Dog Man, but, pretty much that post went into it, pretty much says the same thing, but I'll read down here as well. So it says theories, supernatural being. Some think it's a spirit or demonic entity. Undiscovered species, like Bigfoot. Some believe it's a hidden animal, and honestly, it is, man. It's a hidden animal because, again, there are particular creatures on this earth that the Lord has hidden for a reason. Because once all hell breaks loose, these people out here, these wicked people, I'll say, they're going to be visited by these particular creatures, Says misidentification, bears or large dogs seen standing or running strangely. It says folklore or hoaxes fueled by stories, media, and internet culture. So again, they're saying there's no scientific proof, right? So let's get to the scriptures, man, because again, the scriptures cover everything, man. It does. The Lord does. The Heavenly Father doesn't make any mistakes, man. Come on, man. This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 11 and verse 17. And the point is in 18. It says, For thy almighty hand that made the world of matter without form, wanted no means to send among them a multitude of bears or fierce lions, or unknown wild beasts full of rage, newly created, breathing out either a fiery vapor or filthy scents of scattered smoke, or shooting horrible sparks out of their eyes. And right, man, what's, for the people that are, for the brothers and sisters that are, interested in this particular thing, what's one thing that people always say, when they see these particular creatures, if they don't see it, they usually do what? They smell a foul odor. So again, filthy scents, man. Sometimes you'll smell these creatures before you even see them, man. And that's a key indicator. If you're out in the woods and it just gets quiet, there's something out there, and this isn't, that's not BS. This is real life shit, Verse 19, it says, whereof not only the harm might dispatch them at once, but also the terrible sight might utterly destroy them. So again, man, just seeing these creatures, or have someone ready to give up the ghost, because even then, man, just like looking at, this creature, that's a terrifying beast, man. Now, that was clearly, an AI picture, but again, man, this particular creature is real. You don't have to believe it, but hell, people will believe it once all hell breaks loose, man. And once this power goes out. Because again, just like it also says, I'll grab that as well. That the animals are going to change their places, right? This is 2nd Esdras chapter 5 and verse 8. And it says, there shall be a confusion also in many places, and the fire shall be off, sent out again. And this is the point in this verse that I want to get. It says, and the wild beasts shall change their places, and minstrels women shall bring forth monsters. Now, right, that's the point that I want to get out of this particular verse, that wild beasts are going to change their places. We know, obviously, this is taking place now because of Esau and this deforestation. He's cutting down all of these trees, therefore forcing wild animals to change their places, to change their natural habitat. So, no, this is why you have, particular animals coming into the city, like here in Detroit, which is fucking insane. You have deers. I've seen this with my own eyes, man. I've seen deers in the hood, literally walking down the street, late at night, So these particular creatures, or these particular animals are migrating into the cities. And if these particular, prey animals, are migrating into the cities, how much more the predators that hunt them, So again, these animals are going to change their places, man, And it says, some believe that they're, particular spirits, Some think they're demonic entities, which again, they're newly created creatures, man. When it says they were full of rage. So again, that's why one of its attributes, it says it can even be aggressive at times, man. Which is no joke. These are real animals, right? So I'm going to get the book of Sirach, chapter 39 and verse 28. And it says, there be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. In the time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them. Fire and hail and famine and death, all these were created for vengeance. Slakia. Teeth of wild beasts and scorpions, serpents, and the sword punishing the wicked to destruction. They shall rejoice in his commandment, and they shall be ready upon earth when need is, and when their time has come, they shall not transgress his word. So, right, man, there are particular spirits, that were created for vengeance. That's the reason why you'll have particular people go out, and, take out a bunch of people. I would say that, to just for YouTube's sake, and go out and, take out a bunch of people, or, people being unalived in certain ways, man, whether it be a car crash, being put to death with a modern sword, which is the gun, being put to death in these various fashions. But what does it say? In verse 30, it said teeth of wild beasts, man. So these animals are going to be attacking people, and not just, the common animals that we know, even these unknown animals, these newly created creatures, man, that the Lord has hidden in the woods. And it's literally, man, certain people have seen these animals, man. And eventually those same animals that people thought were fake or, folklore, eventually they're going to make their way to the cities, man. And they're going to be attacking people. They're going to be pouring out judgment, because, again, there are spirits created for vengeance, man. This is a real thing. And these things are for the wicked. And I'll end it with this. It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 15, start at verse 1. And as you can see, says judgment must come. Says, then said the Lord unto me, though Moses and Samuel stood before me, yet my mind could not be toward this people. Cast them out of my sight and let them go forth. Talking about the wicked of our people, man, because they had the prophets, but what did the wicked of our people do, and what are they still doing? They're misusing the prophets. So therefore, what's going to happen to them? Verse 2, and it shall come to pass, if they say unto thee, whither shall we go forth? Then thou shalt tell them, thus saith the Lord, such as are for death to death, and such as are for the sword to the sword, and such as are for the famine to the famine, and such as are for the captivity to the captivity. And I will appoint over them 4 kinds, saith the Lord, the sword to slay, the dogs to tear, and the fowls of heaven, and the beasts of the earth to devour and destroy. So right, man, again, just like it says in Sirach, man, teeth of wild beasts. These animals are going to be attacking people, man. They're going to be a part of, the Lord pouring out his judgment upon Babylon the Great, man. These particular creatures coming out and effing people up. This is a real thing, man. This is going to be taking place. This is a very scary yet exciting time that we're in, man. And this is real, People cannot believe it all that they want to, man. But if it wasn't real, it wouldn't be, reports of this particular creature out here, man. And other cryptid creatures as well, So to all you wicked individuals out there, man, get ready, because Bigfoot, Dogman, and all of these other cryptid creatures, hell, they're going to come see you, So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I say Shalom.